Welcome to the Omnibus Show, a program for people who are interested in everything, with deep conversations on a wide variety of subjects. And now your host, Dave Gibbs.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Omnibus Show, the program for people who are interested in everything, with deep conversations on a wide variety of subjects. This week's guest is Arlon Bayliss, the artist and designer. And welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
And you've got quite a story. And I'm just ready to listen to that, because there's so much that we can learn from you today in glass and design. And you started the Royal College of Art in London, where we were both recently.
Yeah.
Not at the art college, but I mean in terms of in London. But yeah, please tell us about your story and how you got here.
Well, I only realized recently that I moved here in 1990, and I was 33 when I moved here. Now I'm 66. That means that I've just lived here the same amount of time that I lived in the UK. But my story...
So you're officially half British, half American.
Half and half. But my story as an artist really begins with, for me, one of the major milestones was finishing my degree in ceramics at Bristol Polytechnic in England. And somebody built a small glass furnace for the students to experiment with hot glass. And in the last, I would say the last 7 or 8 weeks of my senior year, I fell in love with hot glass. And it was a terrible dilemma to be all ready to graduate in ceramics, and I had a pottery plan already figured out, to have met this incredible material, hot glass, which I wanted to work with. It seemed to me to do a graduate degree in glass would be the right way forward. And so I looked to see what graduate programs there were in glass. The Royal College of Art was the only one, and I thought, well, I'll give them a call and see if I can get an interview. When I called, they said, you're too late, the interviews start next week. So with 5 weeks of glass bundled up into 2 suitcases and my other portfolio of work, I went to London, went to the Royal College of Art, knocked on the door and said, I know you're interviewing, but would you care to look at me as well? And to their credit, they said, leave all the work here, go away for a couple of hours, and come back, and then we'll tell you whether you've got an interview.
Oh, great.
And so, of course, the longest 2 hours of my life, I went and wandered around London, came back, and they said, yeah, we'll give you an interview. So to cut a long story short, I ended up doing a master's degree in glass, having done an undergraduate degree in ceramics, and I'll always be grateful for the break that they gave me, knowing that it was my enthusiasm and the work that I'd done in a very short amount of time that impressed them, but mostly it was about my chutzpah and my enthusiasm, I think, that they were impressed with. And, you know, I grew into a fairly respectable glass artist at the Royal College of Art, where, incidentally, the training was to think of yourself as an artist and as a designer. And so I came out of a tradition where maybe it's the Industrial Revolution tradition, where artists were trained to work in industry. And so I was every bit an artist, but also encouraged to think that the artwork could be produced in factories and therefore enrich the products in factories. And so shortly after that, I became a designer for Rosenthal in Germany. And that, they always referred to me as an artist. I was their guest artist. They didn't have any resident artists. They only had famous artists working for them. That was another scary story. When I turned up to work at Rosenthal, they said, here's your drawer where we'd like you to put the work. And the drawer above me said Walter Gropius, and the drawer below me said Salvador Dali. And I thought,
you've arrived.
Oh, no. But it was a scary moment.
It was a scary moment.
It was a scary moment, because I thought, boy, I've got so scary, but also encouraging. You know, that's a great boost to a young person's confidence.
It's like all of a sudden
think of yourself,
you're in the A League,
I'm working
right?
in the same space.
But you have to make show.
Yeah.
You have to like make show,
Right.
and it's like you've got to...
Exactly.
You've got
Exactly. interestingly, they would always talk about... I worked with them for 10 years as a guest artist, so I would design stuff and then go to stay with them for a week or two, prototype the artwork, and then come back to the UK where I was living. I did that from, I think, 84 until... So it was less than 10 years, 84 until 1990. But what was fun, they always referred to it as play. Come over and play with us. And I thought that was an interesting way to think about it.
Very interesting way.
Yeah.
It kind of takes the edge off a bit.
Yeah. One of my professors at that time, I said, I'm going to save all my good ideas for myself because I need to make those in my studio.
Gotcha.
Studio glass artist. And he said, no, you don't do that. I said, what do you mean? I'm scared if I give them all my good ideas. He said, you need to give them all your good ideas. Your creativity is should be like a coffee pot that's a bottomless coffee pot. And you should give them everything you've got. And that would then make room for new things to occur. And that was a really powerful lesson.
That was good advice.
Oh, fantastic advice. I've lived by that.
Yeah.
Give them, and I gave them all my best ideas, knowing that trusting that creativity would step in and provide new ideas for me to produce in my own studio.
Well, that is, how do I say it? That is great, because that is something that doesn't always happen in life. And for a mentor, teacher to give you that advice and for it to be actualized, that's good life.
Yeah, it was really powerful.
Yeah.
Having the opportunity to teach for many years after that, because I taught for 7 years in the UK and 24 years here, I was also mindful of the fact that I'd been given a break. Some professors took a risk with me, and I tried to remember that in all my teaching. There were students that were what I call rough diamonds that I would certainly pay a lot of attention to, give them a break. Yeah. And it's very interesting to what happens to a rough diamond if you give them a break.
There's always a risk involved, because there's some that it doesn't happen and others that just bloom. And it's one of those mystery of life things. But usually the rough diamonds are where the genius comes from.
It's proven to be true. Yeah, one of my former students, I have several students that are now leading glass programs in other places. And one of them, he really struggled, didn't know what his identity was as a glass artist. And I gave him lots of chances, and he found his identity eventually in what he wanted to do. And now he's leading a major glass program at RIT, at the American School for Crafts. And he's one of the...
That's quite a school, because, I started out a photographer, and one of my teachers at IU, she went on to teach at Rochester Institute of Technology. And in photography, that was, that's Eastman is from there.
Yeah, Eastman.
And so for the arts, that's quite a school. You're at the top. So
it's a good place.
Yeah, that your legacy is in a good place. So that was, from 1990, you had done that. And now, now I want to step back for a second. When you were in Italy, and the reason why I want to find out about Italy is because I remember when I was younger, my father went to Europe with some friends, and he brought back all of us Venetian glass.
Oh, yes, the Murano
And
glass.
it's the Murano. Yeah, exactly. Can you tell us a bit about your work in Italy?
It was, that was, because I was designing for Rosenthal, some other design jobs popped up, and as long as they weren't in Germany, I was free to work with those other places.
Yes.
I got invited to design glass for a company in Italy they were called EOS, and they were run by folks that span off from Venini. Venini's a major glass maker in Murano and Venice. To cut a long story short, they invited me to do some work for them. And at that time, I was teaching in England, and I took students to Venice quite often to show them what was going on.
Sure.
It was a mecca for glassmaking.
Oh,
know? So I turn up at the factory where I know my glass is being made, and I have a small group of students with me, maybe 12, 15 students. And I happen to know that this guy, his name was Checco Ongaro, one of the great Italian masters, is making my glass that day. So I'm quietly proud of the fact that this is happening. And and then the students arrive and then say, it's obviously what he's making. They say, isn't that your work? And I said, yeah, he's making some of my work. Isn't that great? And then I asked him if he could tell us what's going on. And through a translator, he says to the students, I hate making these pieces. These are the hardest pieces that I've ever made.
I hate
And
this.
so,
It may look good to you, but I hate this.
Yeah. He didn't enjoy making them at all.
Oh, that's
So
well. That
was
kind of
good.
like. But I'm sure the kids are like, "Can I have your autograph?"
That was so fun. No, it was
In
a fun-
glass.
It was, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's fun, but yeah. I had a really nice experience taking students to see all of that stuff. And as being a teacher, it's really great to be able to share my own enthusiasm for the subject with students. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think, and that makes to me, if I was a teacher and an artist, that would make that whole experience more meaningful, because you are. It's like living your legacy or your continuity, where you're giving to your students while you're
teaching. Now, it's a lot more work.
Yeah,
It's a lot more work to be a successful studio artist and a teacher. A lot of folks don't realize that's a lot more work. You have to, really give everything you've got to both of those parts of your life. And so I was fortunate that I was able to do that. My life circumstances allowed me to pour everything I had into both teaching and being an artist. Later on, as a public artist.
Yeah, that is that's a great line of life experience and so forth. Question I like asking artists is what's your favorite color?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in truth, I don't have a favorite color.
Okay.
And this is not a cop-out.
No, that's
This
all right.
is not an avoiding the question. I think all colors are important, but I have to tell you why. And the reason I think all colors are important is because it's the relationship between two colors that I think is really exciting. For example, if you take a color like indigo, kind of a darkish blue, that's really nice when it's next to a mustard yellow. It's the combination of the two. If you take...
It's very Van Gogh.
Well, right. Sunflowers, right? Yeah. So you see in Van Gogh, people realize they love the sunflowers, but really there's a lot of really lovely blues in with those yellows.
Oh, yeah.
And it's that relationship that I'm excited by.
Yeah.
So I can't say I have a favorite color. You put a red, let's say a green next to an orangey red, and they're both the same value or tone, then they start to vibrate, and you get this really incredible... Pop artists took great advantage of that. This really great vibration between these two colors.
Yeah.
Football teams or all sports teams often have two colors. There's a reason they have two colors. In their
Aston Villa?
Right, yeah,
There
Aston
you go.
Villa, right?
Blue and maroon.
Right, maroon, or the Colts are white and blue, and then there's Notre Dame, gold and dark blue, right? But these two colors are really... so it's a long answer to your question. But in my own work, I use light quite a lot with dichroic glass. And dichroic glass is a filter for me to use in the way I light my artwork. And I love dichroic glass because it splits the colors of white light. So my light source is always a white light, like an LED, white LED. And then I put a dichroic filter in front of that and manipulate the light with that. Well, it gives all these lovely ranges of complementary colors and tertiary colors. And so I think it's my short answer to your question is the relationship between colors.
That's good.
Is what I love, and that's why I don't have a favorite color.
All of the above.
All the above.
You get
for
to
a good
put in
reason.
for D. Yeah. That's that's fascinating, because the work with the glass and how that relationship happens. And then finally, to finish off with this chapter, could you tell us about a day in the life of the artist?
Oh.
What is a day in the life?
Well, typical day, and I'll use today or tomorrow as an example, right? Currently, my day always starts with coffee, and I'm one of those folks that makes my own coffee.
Meg would love you for that.
I may, but I'm a freak about it. I like making it all myself. I have a professional Gaggia machine. I have I steam my own milk. I grind my own coffee. But you would laugh if you saw the extent that I go to prepare coffee. But honestly, it's a lot to do with the process for me.
Yeah,
I like all the stages.
Yeah.
It's not unlike glass making, where with hot glass I had to think about temperature, time, hand skills, all of that. And I think I live that in a very small way every morning when I do coffee. So then I'll sit with coffee, and probably the most important part of my day is note making. I'm when I was young, I would have been diagnosed as ADHD. I'm one of those folks that's completely scattered and off the wall. I'm very energetic, but as a consequence of that, I've had to learn over the years to manage my energy and my scattered thinking. And so note making is extremely important to me. I start the day by making notes, and I have columns of different things. And not only do I make all my lists, but I also then put numbers next to them in terms of telling me which is the priority. And by the time I finish the first hour of coffee and notes, then I'm ready for the day.
There you go.
But I have to organize myself.
Well, yeah, definitely you're an artist. You're grabbing all the reins of your wild horses.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And not surprisingly, of course, we've learned recently, over the last 10, 20 years about ADHD and creative people. There's loads of creative people that have had to figure out how to focus their attention, that are successful creative people, right?
Yeah.
So the next part of the day would be I go to the studio, pick up some. My studio is only a block from my house, and I live in Anderson because I used to teach in Anderson. So I'm at the studio picking up some models and things, and then I'll take them to Bomar, my fabricator, and we'll have that's 45, maybe 1 hour drive, and then we'll have conversations about the work. Maybe Bob Buchanan, who I'll tell you about later, is a huge part of my work, and he and Bomar are the fabricators for all of my public artwork. And so we'll have conversations. He might show me some lighting that he's been working on. Look, I've tweaked this lighting. I've made this bracket that's going to hold this dichroic filter in front of your lighting. And I think we could do it this way, and he'll give me some ideas about what he's been working on. So we have a really energetic conversation about that. And then he'll call in his brother, Mark, who co-started the business. And Mark's really good with a lot of physical, technical things. And then there'll be other folks from Bomar that come into the conversation. I might show them the models that I've been working on. Currently, I'm doing a project for a private client, and I would show them, well, this is what I'm thinking of doing, and get feedback about that. My relationship with Bomar is very much a dialogue. I'll show them stuff, they'll give me feedback, then I'll refine it some more, and then I'll show them more stuff, and they'll give me feedback. And it's very organic, but I don't show the client anything until I'm sure with Bomar that this is feasible, possible.
It's doable.
Doable, right, and within a budget as well, yeah.
That's good to know.
So that would be, and then there's lunch, and I go to lunch and stuff, and then come back, and I have a small office that Bomar has given me, so I'll be
nice.
It's really great. Actually, it's not that small. They've given me 3 rooms, which is, and I'm able to put my work up in those rooms, and I keep my models there as well. So that's really nice. Yeah, I live by models and conversation.
Well, that makes sense with the kind of work that you do.
Yeah.
In conversation, because that's really what your art leads to is conversation, so it's a natural progression.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Arlon. We will come back in Chapter 2 and learn more about your fascinating experience in life and art. Well, we're going to take a brief break right now, and we'll be back for Chapter 2 with Arlon Bayliss on the Omnibus Show. Hello and welcome back to Chapter 2 of the Omnibus Show. This episode we're with artist and designer Arlon Bayliss. And kind of going back to where you were talking about on the glass program you had at Anderson University, you'd mentioned that led to public art. And this whole process is just very fascinating for us to learn because, here in the Indianapolis Carmel area, your art is gone public, and more it's growing. And can you take us back there and tell us about how that led to public art and your process?
Oh yeah, for sure. So in my second or third year at Anderson University, I was asked by the university to design an outdoor sculpture for a new building that they were having. And prior to that, the biggest thing I'd made would be like 2 feet high, a table piece, or artwork inside a gallery or a museum. But the challenge of making something large was really exciting, and I said yes. And I made it out of slabs of 1-inch thick glass. It's like a helix. So it looks a little bit like a DNA sculpture. And it's called Helios. And doing that project taught me in many things. One of them was that working with architects and masonry people, with concrete people, with electricians, was just as much fun as working in a factory with glass blowers. And I could, maybe although I was doing less work in Europe as a glass designer, I could enjoy that teamwork if I did these larger public art projects. And it led to several other projects. And in those projects, I would work as the artist making these public art pieces at the same time as teaching. And I'd employ students or former students to work with me as a team. So during that time, I made several smaller pieces. One large one with a colleague. He and I and a bunch of people made a large archway that is downtown Anderson. It's called the Crystal Arch, and that's outside of the Anderson City Hall. But this all gave me a taste for what it would be like to work with a team of people. And I love the idea that as an artist, I can create something with others that is just not possible on my own. It's just not possible. And interestingly, to see their excitement, oftentimes these folks are doing fairly mundane jobs. Architect isn't always doing exciting buildings. The engineers aren't always making exciting art objects. But they see the art object as something that's really interesting and challenging to them, and they bring their best to the project.
Yeah.
So I very quickly learned that it was a lot of fun to work with folks that would bring their best to the project. And I also, I think, learned to be good at bringing the best out of people. And in a way, it's an extension of my art, really, which is that I would work with people and encourage them in this way, which means compromise, which means that I'm not an artist that sticks to everything. Has to be the way it is. I know a lot of artists are trained to think of them that the idea is paramount and you must hold on to that idea. I actually think that compromise is a very good thing. And some of the best things in the world are made through a series of lots of really great creative compromises. And so that's my story, really. That's how I've graduated towards making more and more public artwork. And as the work grew bigger, I started to be able to work with bigger teams. And it's important that I talk about BOMAR because my relationship with BOMAR led to a blossoming of work. I've got work at the airport, for example. Before I worked with BOMAR, I worked with my wife, Mary Jo, who did composition for the airport project that we did. It's in Concourse A. It's called Flightwave.
Very
and
nice.
Folks that walk through the airport, if they go through Concourse A, security, there's a glass wall. There's some chevrons that are birds in flight. And that we did when they first built the airport. And before that, she and I worked on a project which was for the Indianapolis Public Library,
Downtown?
Yeah, the Central Public Library, downtown. In a basement garage, there's a first-floor basement garage. I did a light piece, a light installation that led people into the main library. So we worked on that together. But, you know, I got to do one project at Speedway, which was called Seeds of Light, and it was with the Speedway community. I worked with kids that were high school kids and with some folks in the community to build the piece. BOMAR, I employed BOMAR to help make the parts, and Bob Buchanan took a personal interest. He saw the energy and enthusiasm of this project, and he, in his own time, made a lot of the fabricate. It was a very small budget, very small, and he just, out of the goodness of his heart, made a lot of the parts and then brought them to us, and we put it all together. Well, through, again, a contact through BOMAR, a project came up with the city of Carmel, which was to do a roundabout project. And that roundabout project was for a 96th and Westfield. And it became what's now called the Beacon Bloom, which is the one that looks like Queen Anne's lace. That was the first large budget outdoor public art project. And with a budget, you know, the mayor, the city of Carmel, paid for that. And that meant that I could work with a large group of people, the team at BOMAR. It's completely transformed my work.
Wow. So you mean you didn't make Lady Liberty, Statue of Liberty, all in your studio alone?
Lord, no. Good Lord, no. A lot of folks think, how do you get to work on these big projects, and how can you get a budget that command that kind of price on a budget? But it's just a very gradual progress. I took 20 years of making projects on my own and having students and former students work with me before I could finally afford to have big projects where I could pay 50 professionals. The BOMAR's an incredible outfit. They make the best quality work, no matter what they do. They have a lovely approach to creativity, but also to refinement and to no compromise. And so they're the perfect fabricator. And Bob Buchanan takes he and his brother Mark are owners of the company. They take a personal interest in the work and love the challenges that I bring with those projects.
Yeah, that's fascinating to know. Thank you for informing us, because those sizable projects really do take a team, don't they? And you were in the middle of a project right now that is that's kind of tied in with Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So after Beacon Bloom, I did the roses, the 3 roses that are. The name is Grace Lovejoy. That's at Pennsylvania and Old Meridian.
I like those.
Deliberately huge, 45 feet tall.
That's great.
But my intention is to bring joy, and we want to bring that kind of enlivening the space. Think about activating the space. We think about bringing added value to the whole space. And then, of course, outside here, we're in Feinstein's, we're in Hotel Carmichael. The Center for the Performing Arts has Hoagie, the homage to Hoagie sculpture that we did for outside of that.
All the notes.
Yeah. So that was a fun project.
I think music when I see that.
Good. That's the whole
bouquet,
intention.
I call it the happy bouquet.
Good.
And then when I come out of here and I see that, I think, music.
Music, good.
And,
good. The whole intention was to celebrate
songbook.
Hoagie
and I put
Commons.
Songbook music on.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's good. And I love the research. I love digging. And I understand now why writers love researching so much. Research is really a lot of fun, and it helps the work have more relevance. And if I can bring a little bit of education to the work, with the work, then that's fun too. So the project you're talking about would be for 96th Street. The mayor asked me to do 4 artworks on 4 roundabouts, consecutive roundabouts on 96th Street, with a new development for that car sales corridor. I came up with the idea.
Which is perfect for that corridor, because it's all car.
It's a project of a lifetime, really. To have 4 projects like that, all connected, I went away and researched cars and what I could do with cars. The idea of celebrating Indiana's historic cars, classics, came very quickly, and everybody at the city loved that. And so that was the theme. And for the last 2-3 years, we've been working on producing those artworks. This year, we installed 3 of them. There's 1 more yet to install. But to celebrate cars like the Marmon Wasp, which was the first one to win. The Marmon Wasp was the winner of the first Indy 500. To celebrate Auburn Cord Duesenberg.
And I like the yellow one there.
That's the yellow car,
it's
the Marmon
happy,
Wasp. It's a fantastic.
All of a sudden, I start driving 250 miles an hour.
But that car was iconic. The inventions that happened during this period, from 1900 all the way to 1920, were enormous. A lot of the advancements in car design happened here in Indiana.
Yes.
That Marmon Wasp, the racing car, was the first car to have a rear-view mirror. Auburn Cord Duesenberg pioneered things like front-wheel drive. On those cars, there were things like pop-up headlights. The engines of Duesenbergs were the most powerful engines for at least 20 years. Engineering advancements that are set the way for a lot of car designs in the future. And, then I did the Studebaker sculpture. Again, BOMAR has made all of this possible. Their work, when I say they've revolutionized the way I work, when I see the way, it comes from my experience in glass studios, when I see the way somebody works, then it helps me work towards those skills. And Bomar's skills are enormous, and therefore I designed things which I think they can make, and then we have conversations about, can we make this? How do you make this? And so they've...
sort of a synchronistic creativity.
Oh, it's huge. And I call it a dialogue because it's a two-way thing. It's not like I say do this, and then they do their best to do it. That's very limited. When it's a two-way thing, back and forth, then not only is it a lot more fun as a project, but the product is better. It's better than anything I could imagine.
Yeah.
Nearly, I would say, in every of these projects, these things that crop up, which exceed my expectations. I'm very good at listening to other people's suggestions too. If it's a good suggestion, then I'll include it. I mean, it's very important to listen to other people's input.
Well, the audience is for life learners primarily, and I mean anybody can listen, but the constantly conversational and learning about, especially the art. You just keep going, and going back to where your teacher, mentor had told you about, put it all out there. That gives you the freedom, correct? Gives you the confidence to work with other people, thinking other than thinking, I got to do it all. I'm Napoleon, of course. Is that you're able to work with people, and that just seems like that kind of conjoining of talent just is going to bring a stronger project. Because you're strength and strength. And so that is really incredible. Can you tell us about, from here, what are some future projects that are coming up? And of course, we'll put his website in the description, and you can go and learn about Arlon's art there.
So coming up, well, of course, we have to finish the fourth and final roundabout artwork, which is to do with the classic cars of Indiana. That's going to be, it's a hood ornament from a Stutz car, and the hood ornament is in the shape of a Art Deco or Egyptian god. And it's just a beautiful hood ornament that I've expanded in size, and Bomar is currently, we've been struggling with it, and that's why it's the last one that's taking a bit of time. It's an enormously challenging project, but it will be stunning. It's made of slices of metal. So if you imagine
it's very Art Deco.
Yeah, very Art Deco. Imagine the Art Deco sort of hood ornament from a car, but it's in the shape of a head, which is Egyptian, and it has wings on it. And then, but we've sliced it. My proposal was to slice it in lots of slices of metal. Well, that sounds great, and it looks fantastic, and it will eat the light. What it will do with light will be fantastic, but fabricating it has had its own challenges. Weight is one of them, and the sheer amount of material is another one. So we've been modifying it, and it will hopefully be completed before the end of this year, but it might go into next year. So we're working on that, and after this, I'll be going over to Bomar and working with them some more on that today.
What kind of metal do you use?
It's stainless steel or aluminum, depending.
I was going to say, it sounds like it would be for the shine.
Right, and Bomar are great fabricators in aluminum and metal. They're super skilled in all of that. And then I'm also working on a private commission for a tree outside of a gentleman who has, he and his wife have an incredible car collection, and they want to have a tree that celebrates, well, we came up with this idea together, but he's a great collector of cars. He has had 30 or 40 Corvettes. And we've come up with the idea of a tree which shows the history of Corvettes. So my challenge as an artist is to make a tree rather like Beacon Bloom, the one that looks like Queen Anne's lace, but it lights up at night with all these lovely colors. But when you look closely, you will see all of the 8 or different variations of Corvettes in the tree.
Wow.
Which is a nice challenge.
That is a nice challenge.
Yeah, so
that makes it very, it's a constant or a perpetual conversational piece.
Right. Yeah. And it's nice to
piece
celebrate.
Of art, I should.
Right. Yeah, piece of art with a story.
Yeah, with a story.
Narrative story is super important. So I'm working on that. And then with Bomar and some different architects, I'm working on several art pieces for Indot. Has got some new. Indot will be producing rest stops rest areas or welcome stops
Right.
around the major interstates around Indiana. And I'm happy to say that I'm going to be working on some artworks that will be at some of those locations. So that's a nice project
Looking
too.
forward to that.
I'm very fortunate. I've reached a point in my life where I don't have to go after work anymore.
It's coming after you.
Yes, and that's nice. It's a very nice position to be in, and my job now is to decide which projects to do, so I can put all my energy into the projects rather than going looking for jobs. So I'm very blessed and very happy to say that I've reached that point in my life.
That's fabulous. That's great. I mean, and it's like you're at a point where what I love about this happens a lot in specific people in art. It's like,
Right.
You're kind of towards what a lot of people are towards retirement.
Right,
You're
right.
going the opposite direction.
No, that's true.
And I always tell people never retire, just
No.
what's your next job? But
Right.
you're back to 23.
Oh, exactly.
You're like, I'm back in my 20s, here we go.
Here we go.
Which is
But with the advantage of some experience, with knowing what to worry about, what not to worry
the
about.
wisdom of time.
But I must say, none of this would be possible without partnerships. My wife, Mary Jo, is an incredible partner, and she's encouraged me
That's
through
great.
all of this, especially the later stages of my
Yeah.
work. Bob Buchanan, he's become a great friend through the work. What a great way to become friends with somebody. Through the work you do together, we formed a great friendship. And so I benefit from all of the, and everybody that puts their hands on the work. All those art sculptures that are in Carmel, they've been touched by 50, 60 different people that are all living in Indianapolis and around the Indianapolis area. So, it's just wonderful to look at these work and think that it's the product of all these different people working together.
Yeah. Well, while you were saying that, I was just thinking of, I was thinking of like you and Bob. I was going to ask you, it's like, do you have coffee in the morning together?
Oh, yeah.
And then I thought, it'd be great if you did a coffee blight, because you like it so much.
Oh, yeah.
Get, the coffee or the caffeine
Right,
trail
right,
here,
right.
that somewhere along the line
Yeah.
you'd have like coffee, with glass. That'd be a great idea. Well, Arlon, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was a
It's
great
been a real
conversation.
privilege. Thank you for asking me.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Omnibus Show. Today's guest was Arlon Bayliss, the artist and designer. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Hotel Carmichael, and we are shooting from Feinstein's. We look forward to being with you on the next episode of the Omnibus Show.
If you enjoyed this program, please like, share, and subscribe to continue the conversation. For the Omnibus Show newsletter, please sign up at theomnibusshow.com.